So, my dear ones, I trust your day is off to a very good start, and I trust that there's a twinkle in it. There's a hop, skip, and jump to your step. There's a twinkle in your eye, and you're up to good mischief. So, this morning, as I was doing my spiritual practice, which sounds very strange to me, doing your spiritual practice, and all it means is you're consciously connecting with your source in some way or another, maybe through a reading, and maybe through visioning, and maybe through a meditation, and maybe through whatever. But that's what it is. And so what came to me was, and I hadn't really moved through it in a little while. And it's the piece where Ernest Holmes has his great vision, his last great vision in public, that's for sure, where he gets very clear about his connection with his source. And he was in one of our centers and he was presenting a message. And at the beginning of the message here, there's a quote that says, "We are all fourth dimensional people in a life that's more than meets the eye." Now, we do live in a three-dimensional world, not to be misunderstood there, but within this three-dimensional world, you and I are all having our own individual experiences, and we're in and out of dimensions all the time. But since the world, especially in his day, classed us all as three-dimensional beings and three-dimensional this, that, and the other, he was a little ahead and said, no, we're actually moved out of that phase and now we're into being fourth-dimensional beings. And we've heard this for a long time now. And indeed, some have had experience of the fifth dimension, etc. But remember Jesus saying, in my Father's house there are many mansions. In my Father's house, he says, there are many mansions. And so, because of that, you and I are in and out of various and sundry states of consciousness, because mansions here means consciousness. So sometimes we're in three-dimensional consciousness, sometimes we're in fourth-dimensional consciousness, and it goes up, and it goes up, and it goes up, and it goes down. And so it's a good, wonderful thing to think of yourself, well, how am I as a fourth-dimensional being? What does that mean? Well, it's an advance on the three-dimensional state of being and all that goes with it. It's sharper, it's clearer, it's more defined, and you and I do better operating in mind and thinking and feeling at that level. Of course we do. So that was interesting, again, as I revisited it. We are fourth-dimensional people in a life that's more than meets the eye. Now, life always more than meets the eye. And in this writing of his, Ernest Holmes says, this statement is in every branch of this organization, and there is no difference between the person who runs some department or the one who sweeps the floor. That this awareness is in each and every one of us. Each and every one of us has the same amount of moreness, so to speak. The only difference is how awake any one of us might be to it. That's what makes the difference. And that's what gets us to identify this one as better than that one, or this one higher than that one. And we like to play those games. But everybody is one in spirit, and everyone is of the very same essence in spirit, of the very same makeup as spirit is. Now, all of us are in sleep states of some kind or another. And as we awaken more fully and more fully and more fully, it seems that we're more knowledgeable, we're more knowing, we're more advanced, or whatever you want to think in those terms. But we're not. Because in any one moment, you and I could fall fast asleep again, and so could all these ones who are ahead of the game. They could fall asleep again and forget. And the ones who are snoring and unconscious could wake up suddenly. So it's a very fascinating thing, this thing called life and living, and this thing called a human experience. Because it's just a temporary human experience. Because each and every one of us is a spiritual being. And we've heard it over again and again, having a temporary human experience. But this is not where we belong. This is not where we're going to stay. We are in that evolutionary state of movement. And the evolutionary state is a spiraling upward movement. And we'll keep shedding bodies and bodies and bodies and refining bodies and bodies and bodies and bodies, it seems. And as we do, we're more refined, we're more a little alert and awake and so on. But any one of us has the opportunity to do it wherever we land ourselves, in whatever dimension we find ourselves. We have the capacity to wake up now, to come to our senses now, to come to ourselves now, to come home to ourselves. It's an awesome thing to be thinking about, actually. Why not? We think about so much of that which is nonsensical. Let's think about something that's exciting and delighting and fills us with that sense of awe and wonder. That curiosity about ourselves that all children have and many adults, most adults, lose. We want to keep that, reawaken that, and stay with that. What's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? What is this thing called life? And so he says, I got my mental arms around the situation enough to embrace it, this awareness. And if I did, and if I and everybody else does, it will heal the whole thing, whatever it is, just as easy as one little part of it. Because there are no parts in unity, isn't that right? And I think we don't quite realize enough the sweepingness, the all-inclusiveness of what we are and what we do. Everything we do, in a sense, is huge. And it's huge because it affects everything else and everyone else. Little, big, small, good, bad, and indifferent. It's all affecting everything and everyone. We're quite amazing, and we're quite the instrument, actually. And we can be instruments for good or not so good. We could be like a time bomb in some place. We could be like the most beautiful, magical healing wand in another place. It's whoever we choose to be. I get to choose that, and so do you. Nobody makes you anything. You've already been made by the Divine One. You're not remade by anything or anyone outside yourself. You do it to yourself, and I do it to myself. We make and remake ourselves all the time. All the time. And we ourselves are responsible for that. Nobody else. So stop blaming every Tom, Dick, Sheila, Mary, Penelope, and Harry. Not to blame. Neither are you. There's no blame. It just is what it is. You see, in the realm of the eternal spiritual beingness, there's no judgment at all. None whatsoever. There's no blaming goes on. None whatsoever. Because we're sovereign beings, we do it all to ourselves and through ourselves, in the way we think, in the way we feel, in the way we respond, in the way we react to life and living. And no one but no one and nothing has that power over us, because we are sovereign beings. We're under no one and we're under no thing. It's an amazing thing to realize, even if it is momentary, even if it is for a tiny flash, that I am the sovereign entity, the sovereign being, and that I have the capacity, by the way I'm thinking and feeling and doing, to create whatever life I want to create. And that's immense. That is just so immense. I would have loved to have done the whole piece on that, but we don't have that kind of time today. But Ernest Holmes goes on to say, we have yet to see what the multiple consciousness of a spiritual community can do if the members are properly trained, if they permit someone to exercise authority over them. Now wait, don't think that's taking over, it's not. Not over their theology, not over their private lives, but over one thing only, their spiritual concepts. Spiritual concepts. And he doesn't mean authority by, wielding the that terrible thing that we all feel when somebody is trying to tell us who we are and what to do and what we have to do and what we must do. He's talking about wielding the spiritual authority within me. When I wield it, hopefully it is recognized in something awakening in you, and a light bulb goes on. Are you wielding it in that way? And I recognize it in you, and a light bulb goes on. That's what he's talking about. And he's talking about spiritual concept. And he says everything boils down to our spiritual concepts. What we think spiritually, that's defining our lives. And so that's why he's always saying clarity, clarity, clarity. Get a grip on what it is you're thinking. And the first time he meets people, what he usually says to them is, well, how is your life working for you? Is what you're believing in working for you? How does that show up in your life by means of you? What it is you're believing in? What do you believe in? You see, that always fascinated Ernest Holmes. He was always fascinated by people and what they think, what they believe, because he knew that what they think and believe has made them who they are. And he just wants to find out, are you happy with who you are? Is it working for you? Are you having a good life as a result of it? What you think and what you feel and what you believe. Because all of that affects what you do and how you show up in the world. And it's a fascinating thing. And that's why every single person you'll ever meet is a fascination in and of themselves. Because every single person you meet is like a library of books. Not just one book, a library of books. And all their stories are in there. And so we could be in awe of each other in that way, do you know? No matter who we are. And we'd never again think, well, some people are interesting and some people are not so interesting and some people are blah and some people are this and that and the other, which is a whole lot of nonsense. Just people are people, and we are all of the same substance, and we have all the same opportunities. And for those who have eyes to see, they'll get beyond appearances. They'll get beyond labels. And the hellishness of when this happens, this particular thing, is when people say, they hear about somebody who's getting a job or this or that, and somebody else say, oh, I heard she's a this, I heard he's a that. They heard. They don't know at all if any of that is true. Not one iota of truth do they know about it. But they'll pass it on. I heard, and then straight away somebody's getting a negative impression of somebody based on nothing anybody knew but heard. And that's not a good footing to start off on if you're meeting somebody. Best to meet somebody that you know nothing about. Find out for yourself. So, that's a reminder to you and to me not to do that, not to say, oh, I heard about her, I heard about him, not to do that. That doesn't get us very far on the evolutionary scale going up. It really doesn't. It kind of gets us stuck where we can't move up the way we could have if we didn't do that. Yet we all love to do it. And did you hear? There are always those who'll come and say, did you hear about blah? And there are people amongst us, and I know them, and they try to get close to you by sharing negative things about other people. And they'll say things like, well, I never discussed this with anybody, but somehow I'm going to share it with you. Like you're privileged to hear this negative stuff. I don't know, my dear ones. I mean, when you think about life, and certainly when you think about spirituality, we're always at the stage of the ABCs. We're learning our ABCs all the time with how to be, how to think, how to feel, how to do, how to show up, so on. And it's a never-ending revisit to the kindergarten, to get back to our ABC blocks with it all. Oh, we know that kindergarten well. Even though we've been promoted up and up and up and up, there comes a time when we have forgotten so much that we need to go back to the ABCs. Back to our ABCs. And it's a good thing that we're awake enough to be able to do that. It's a good thing if we have real friends. And my mother always said, if you can count real friends on one hand, you're rich indeed. You're rich indeed. Real friends. They'll gentle us into remembrance. They will gentle us right back into remembrance that we don't have to be in the kindergarten room. Remember, we've left that. We graduated. And yet, as far as spirituality is concerned, it seems to me, that's where a lot of us hang out much of the time because we need to. We just need to. And it's an amazing thing. If you're a listener and if you're an observer in life, and if you listen more than talk, and if you observe more than not, you'll find that many people who are in spiritual communities of all different kinds seem to have a gap between what the teaching of the community is, the organization is, and the way they show up in life. I've noticed this in my own life, and I've noticed it in the lives of many. And when I was invited to, at one very great holiday in one of our spiritual communities that are brothers and sisters to us, and I was asked, well, why is the world in such a state it's in? And my immediate response was, because we don't live by the principles of what we say we believe in. We just don't live up to them. If all of the spiritual communities everywhere were living up to them, the world would be a different place. That's not a criticism. That's an observation. And that is why I have to remind myself and others that most people come to spiritual communities to recalibrate, recover, to mend something, fix something, heal something. And very few are here because they've done all of that. And when I say here, I mean in any spiritual community, because they've done all of that. There's a small percentage who come because they just get it, they love the energy, they can't get enough of it, they like to hang out with people who are endeavoring to be like-minded and so on. They enjoy that. But that's why you and I can have great patience with each other, because most people, when they come into a spiritual community, there's something there that they're looking for, that they haven't discovered yet, or we wouldn't be in spiritual community. The world would have transcended itself. The whole world would be a spiritual community. We wouldn't have to seek out little pockets. We wouldn't have to seek out little pockets of more lightfulness. But Ernest Holmes here, in this last real amazing experience that he had in public in this way, I mean, his sermon by the sea in Asilomar was phenomenal too, but in this people got a real sense of him kind of being otherworldly. So he says, we have co-joined our consciousness with the eternal guarantee of the universe that the everlasting and eternal Father of all life and the Mother of all creation, forever begetting the only begotten, is begetting him, her, in us right now. The eternal is forever begetting the only begotten in you, in me, all the time, right here and right now. And you could spend a lifetime trying to get on the inside of that. He says, and that the word of our mouth is a word of truth in such degree as it emulates and embodies the truth which sacrifices the word to its unique service of healing not only the sick, but the poor in heart. You and I, having healed ourselves, could be the conduits of healing to others. And that's why we're in spiritual community, so that can happen. So that we can heal ourselves and then be that healing energy out in the world that can assist others to heal too. It's a beautiful thing. He says we are dedicated to the concept that the pure in heart shall see God here, now, that the meek will inherit the earth here, now, that one with truth is a majority, that every one of us is, every single one of us is in the secret place of the Most High, in the center of his or her own consciousness. And he says, this secret is eternal and no more a secret. The everlasting, the almighty, and the ineffable God and I are one, and I see uniting in one great inner praise, one great union of effort, one crescendo of song, and one evolving light of consciousness. And then he goes into the state and he says, I see it. O God, the veil is thin between. We do mingle with the hosts of heaven. I see it, and I shall speak no more. And the whole thing is, dear hearts, you and I can see it too. Ernest Holmes would tell you, I'm no different to anybody else. And that is why when he passed, he said, I don't want any of this business of people coming and visiting my graveside. That's why it was kept very, very quiet and nobody knew where it was. He said, when I'm gone, I'm out of here and I'm not coming back. And if anybody tells you they've seen me and I'm back, they're lying. I'm not coming back. I've completed what I needed to complete here and I'm going to go on into the next thing. He was very down to earth. He didn't think that he was any different to anybody else. He just said it's within us all to know, to love, to understand, to be one. It's in us all. And every single person has that capacity. No one has been denied it. And the difference that seems to be is just that each individual one of us has the opportunity to make decisions to wake up or not. And so all of us who are in any kind of a spiritual community are in it because we want to wake up. We want to know ourselves as best as we can know ourselves, as the best of ourselves. We want to be all that we can be so that we have everything we came to bring to the world, to put on the table and bring it. Succeed in bringing what we came here to bring and put on the table of life. And make the difference. Make the difference. Every day you and I have the opportunity to make a difference. A little one, a big one, any kind of a difference, but a difference that is enriching, enhancing, and uplifting life. That's what you are. You're the conduit of life. You're the conduit of a blessing. You're the conduit of healing. You're the conduit of spirit itself. So am I. Dear, dear, dear. When are we going to get that? In the sense that we know it, we feel it enough to demonstrate it in a palpable way in our lives. And then what happens is we get jazzed with giving, with sharing, with presenting our gifts. We don't keep wrapping them all the time and then putting them in a cupboard for when it's time to give, when it's time to give, when it's time to... It's always time to give. Always time to give. So I leave you with that for this moment in time before we move into our next little thing that we do together. It's to really honor yourself and be excited about yourself, be in awe of yourself, be in wonder of yourself. You're the only one you need to awe. No one else. You're the only one you need to impress. No one else. For it's impossible to do that anyway. You might impress somebody for a minute, but it soon fades. But we need to keep ourselves impressed always with the one, with the Spirit, with its life, with its light, with its love, with its givingness of itself back to itself. Isn't it wonderful? And so are you. And so, my dear ones, now we are going to be happy to take our wonderful gift and share it. Now, some of you may have already done this. I mean, it's automatically taken out of my agreement, but it's the symbology of it. It's to take the gift, imagined, invisible, into your hands, into your blessing hands, and say, divine love consecrates my gift. It goes forth to heal, to bless, to prosper all those who give and all those who receive. I rejoice in the sharing of my good, and I release my gift with love, and so it is. So stay merry today, my dear ones. Join us all. We can all be Irish for a day, that's for sure. The best part of being Irish, I mean. And the Irish are really mystics and poets and scholars and saints and sinners in their history, in their long, long history, and indeed remain so to that same degree in a different way today. We can all be that. I love to be everything and anything that's going on. I'll be Italian for a day, or, whatever it is we're celebrating, I'll own it, because we're all one, are we not? And the more we have to celebrate how wonderfully upbeat life is. So celebrate today. Just know that great ones appear all the time throughout all the ages to help us along the way. And Patrick was one of those. And so, my dear hearts, take good care of yourselves. And remember, it's okay to do this, to self-care, because God dwells in you as you. Be careful about that. And until we meet again, thank you so much for all the great good you're responsible for, and most of it you don't know about at all. And we, being in community, are able to reach very far with our caring of life and living. So thank you for that, and know you're loved, you're cherished, you're prayed up, and we're here for you however we can be here for you. Just let us know. And until we meet again, as the children would say, farewell. Take care now, and happy St. Patrick's Day.